Glyn Wright, who's executive director of Eagle Forum. And Glyn will be here representing Mrs. Phyllis Schlafly, one of the conservative icons that anybody who's been involved in conservative politics has looked up to and has known and has been admired for at least 60 years.
Thank you all for being here today. It's an honor to give this statement on behalf of Phyllis and Eagle Forum and the thousands of families that we represent. As we all saw in November, the president received a thundering rejection to his attempt to make the midterm elections a referendum on his policies. And the biggest Republican majority in 60 years has promised to bring new life to Congress. But instead of offering a conservative agenda to the people who elected him, Congress is looking to grant even more power to the president, more than he's already given himself with his pen and his phone. Article 1, Section 8 gives Congress the authority to regulate commerce with foreign nations. Yet most of the agreement has already been negotiated in secret, so fast track just legitimizes what the president has already done once again behind Congress's back. Senator Elizabeth Warren admitted the secrecy of the negotiations in a speech last year, saying they have to be secret because if the American people knew what was actually in them, they would be opposed. It's nonsensical for the Republican Congress to turn this power over to a president who continually shows a complete disregard for the rule of law, constitutional restraints, and the separation of powers. The last fast-track deal, which gave us the free trade agreement with South Korea, has been a total failure. We were told it would support 70,000 jobs from increased exports alone. But U.S. exports to South Korea have actually declined, while imports have risen. Obama has achieved one of his goals, the end of American superiority, and maybe that will be his principal legacy. China's economy just overtook the U.S. economy to become the largest in the world. And for the first time since Ulysses S. Grant was president, America is not the #1 power in the world. In global calculations, economic supremacy is the basis of political clout. Now, the world economic superpower is one controlled by Marxist communists instead of one that respects the rule of law. Republican members of Congress support fast track in the name of free trade, ignoring the polls showing the unpopularity of their stance. A Pew Research poll found that while Americans agree that trade is good, only 1 in 5 Americans believe that trade creates jobs. By more than 3 to 1, Americans say that outsourcing hurts our economy. Funny enough, Pew also asked members of the Council on Foreign Relations the same question and found that 73% of CFR members think outsourcing is good. That's the view of the globalists who are forcing us to compete with the low-paid and even slave labor in other countries. The Pew poll is a warning to Republicans. It found that working-class voters oppose free trade agreements by a 2 to 1 margin and see so-called free trade and amnesty as two sides of the same problem. American workers are pressed by competition from foreigners at home through immigration and from abroad by free trade, and they don't like the squeeze. A vote for fast track will depress Republican turnout in future elections among these crucial voters. Another Pew poll reveals that 50% of Americans recognize that jobs are destroyed by this kind of so-called free trade. And 45% of Americans understand that this type of trade results in lower wages in the U.S. It's shocking that Congress would adopt a policy that destroys jobs and decreases wages when a record number of Americans continue to be out of work. More than 92 million Americans are out of the labor force, 12 million more than when Obama took office. Granting fast-track authority to this president is yet another cave-in, and we implore Congress to push aside the heavy lobbying by multinationals, outsourcers, and Wall Street, and instead stand for those on Main Street, the American people who are struggling to make it in this Obama economy. This is an issue that we've worked on for a long time, and I think it's one of my favorite issues because it is so unpolarizing. We live in a time where our politicians are continually trying to polarize Americans, really to make a buck and to get themselves in the media. And this isn't an issue that unites. It is an issue where Phyllis Schlafly can sit down at the same table as the labor unions because we are Americans and because we want what's best for our families. So it would be prudent of Congress to stop trying to make political calculations on this issue and actually listen to the American people and see what the American people want.